We'd like to welcome our members and those of you who are tuning in maybe for the first time. People from the community and elsewhere, we indeed welcome you today. I am the Reverend Dave Clements. I serve this congregation as the interim minister. And again, hearty welcome. And if you have more interest in learning more about our church, you can go to our website, and on there, there's a link that you can click, and we hope that you will do that. We look forward to hearing from you. We always like to pay tribute to the native nation which this land that our building sits on, and we are thankful for that. We're also grateful for all of you to join us this day in this special flower communion. We also want to be mindful that this weekend is Memorial Day, and we pay tribute to those who have sacrificed, our ancestors, our loved ones, and may we take time to celebrate those who serve in our armed forces and all that they do for us. And now, Linda, what's happening in our church?
Good morning, everybody. There are many ways for you to connect during the week. On Wednesday evening at 7, we have Joys and Sorrows. You can use this time to talk about what's important to you. At 7 p.m. on Thursday, we have Adult RE. Please tune in. The conversation is always enjoyable. And on Friday morning at 9:30, we have muffin and coffee chat with the ministers. We also invite you to register for General Assembly this year. Instructions on how to do that are in the builder. GA will be 100% virtual, and the cost is $150. Really a bargain for all that you will see and do and learn about our Unitarian Universalist community. Now, if you haven't filled out your pledge form, please do so and return it. We are currently at 80% of our goal. Just 20% more to go. We need your help. And after the service, coffee hour will be hosted by the ministers on Zoom today at 11:30. We invite you all to attend, and at the end of the service, the number that you need to put in to get to the Zoom room will be posted, so you'll be able to see it. And now we have opening words. I think you're going to enjoy seeing this couple who has moved away, but who's kind enough to say hello to us today.
Hi.
Hello.
We're calling from Golden, Colorado.
This is Rick
And Ann.
Growie. The Flower Communion Blessing by the Reverend Amy Zucker Morgenstern. Each of us is like a flower, with a delicate beauty uniquely our own. We may be like sunflowers, turning always towards the light.
May our lives bloom like the flowers.
We may be like night-blooming cereus, only displaying our fragrant petals when it is dark and we think no one can see.
May our lives bloom like the flowers.
We may be hothouse flowers, far from our native lands, cautiously tended within a harsh and unfamiliar climate. May our lives bloom like the flowers.
Some of us sometimes are roses, slowly assembling petal after tightly wrapped petal, and revealing our full glory only when everything is in place. May our lives bloom like the flowers.
Sometimes we are roadside weeds, loveliness bursting improbably from the dust and debris.
May our lives bloom like the flowers.
May we offer our beauty with the simplicity of flowers, expecting no recognition, hoping for nothing, giving out of what we are, and knowing it is enough. May our lives bloom like the flowers.
Bye, everyone.
And now we will have a word from Amanda Franklin, who's been very active in our church and wants to tell you why she loves being here. After Amanda, we'll have some special music by our accompanist, Rosa Chang.
Hi, my name's Amanda Franklin. I've been a member of our church for 6 years. In that time, I found my home and my people. I've volunteered with events, served on committees, and today I come to you as a member of the annual campaign team. Recently, I had the honor of serving on our minister search committee, which helped bring the Reverend Jennifer Innes to our church, and I am so very excited about our future. I hope you're excited too. With the current state of the world and shelter-in-place orders, thankfully, both my husband and I have been able to work from home while caring for our 2 daughters. We've developed new routines and found new comforts in the everyday. For me, comfort and joy comes when I get to Zoom meet with my Covenant Circle, virtually attend a committee meeting, participate in muffins with the ministers on Fridays. We've created new routines, including lighting our own chalice and watching the Sunday service while we work on a puzzle or a family craft. Seeing and interacting with you, my church family, it fills my cup. It gives me peace and reminds me that we will get through this and continue to work to make the world a better place. As we think about what summer and fall may bring for our church, what we'll be able to do that we have done before, what we won't be able to do, and what we can alter so that it works for us. My hope is that funding won't be what prevents us from doing what we do. My hope is that our funds will continue to care for our church building, our church members when they need it, and our employees without question. This is why my family and I have made our annual pledge to the church. We've made our promise. That's what pledges are. Pledges are promises that we make to our church and to each other. Pledges say, I support our church, the work we do, the care we give, the activities and traditions we hold dear. Promises that help our church leaders determine what we'll be able to plan for, what we'll be able to do, what we will have to give up or let go. Weekly donations to the offering plate are important, but pledges help us plan. On behalf of the annual campaign team, I want to thank the 172 families and members who have already pledged. If you made your pledge early and now find that maybe you could promise more for the coming church year, reach out to Nancy Rakoff or Jan in the office and let them know. If you were thinking about waiting until the congregational meeting on June 14th when we discuss and vote on our budget, I implore you, please don't wait. Your promise to our church will help us plan a better budget. If you haven't yet made your financial promise to the church, please do so soon. With our losses over the past year, from those who have moved or passed away, we've lost an expected $30,000 in pledges. Can you help us make up some of that? As our local communities start to open back up, our routines and comforts, they'll change again. But what won't change is our community, the community that you and I build each day when we reach out to each other. We're looking to the future and what church will look like when we'll be able to gather again. No matter when that day comes, I know that our church isn't closed. We're open, and we remain open. Open to each other, open to the possibilities of what this life has to offer, open to living our 7 principles. I saw something on Facebook that said, of course we're essential. That's why we've been worshiping, serving, and caring throughout this pandemic. Just not in our building. Our UU building is the world. Let's promise to take care of our UU Church of Peoria. Thank you.
We are like flowers that grow, turning to the sun. You can see the light of love in our faces, and we can see it in yours.
And that we are blooming into a bouquet of loving promise, a gathering of family and community all together.
We bloom, morning glory.
And now it's time for a story for all ages. We welcome Amy Pop, the head of our religious education department, to tell us a story. Amy?
Good morning. Today we are gathering together with flowers to remind ourselves that we all bring beauty and joy to each other in our own special ways. Today's story is about one young man who took that belief to heart. It is called One Flower a Day. Once upon a time, there was a young boy who lived in a palace with his family, who worked in the service of the king. One day, he was walking with a friend in the main palace hall, and he saw a big vase filled with the most wonderful flowers you could imagine. After some hard thinking, he decided to take one flower to give to a sweet girl that he liked very, very much, thinking that the king couldn't possibly miss one flower. The next day, he took just one flower to give to his mother, who he loved very much. And the next day, he took one flower to give to a sad old woman who lived alone. And then he gave away flowers to more and more people the next day, and the next day, and the next. Until one day, the king noticed how few flowers were left in the vase. He was so angry that he called everyone in the palace to gather. When they were all before the king, the boy knew that he should say it had been him who took the flowers, even though he knew the king would be terribly angry with him. The boy was frozen with fear, but when the king came near, he decided to confess. As soon as the boy told what he had done, the king went red with anger. But on hearing what the boy had done with the flowers, a smile appeared on the king's face, and he said, "I couldn't have thought of a better use for my flowers than bringing joy to others." And from that day on, the boy and the king became great friends. They went to the vase and took 2 of those wonderful flowers, one for the boy to give away, and the other for the queen. I agree with the king. I think bringing joy to others is one very important, simple thing that we can do in our lives. And I think that our world can always use more joy. May we all remember to find joy and share joy wherever we can, with whoever we can, with our church family, with those we care about, and with all of the people of the world. So be it.
You know, it takes a lot of people to make this service work. And I want to thank Rosa for her beautiful playing, the Growies. Thank you so much for coming back and saying hello to us. Amy, whose stories always have an important point. And I guess one thing to know is that sometimes we might leave someone out, but please, in your heart, you know that we're grateful for the work that you do. Thanks, Austin. And we're grateful for many ways in which everyone is cooperating to help make our Zoom meetings and these services possible. We light candles of love and support today for Dennis Harvey as he adjusts to his new condition of a serious illness. Phyllis Close, who is dealing with some family concerns. Harvey Thomas, as he continues to overcome his obstacles. Reverend Linda White, as she supports her sister who is currently hospitalized. And we send healing wishes to Ev Maloney as she recuperates from outpatient surgery. We send congratulations to Katie Jones, who has a new job at Unity Point. Anthony Boudreau, who received the Employee of the Month Award, and Shar and Joe Rickey as they celebrate the birth of a new great-grandson whose name is August. We've also had several graduations, but I invite you to tune in next week as we have the service for our youth, and then you'll find out about their many wonderful accomplishments.
Our spoken meditation today is called Blessing for Flower Communion by Michael Devron Boblet. Blessed be the flower that triumphs at last over the snows, over the centuries, over the heavy feet of cattle and of soldiers treading down the fragile places of the earth. Blessed be the flower that triumphs at last over the tangled branches, over the withered stem, over the tearing thorns of roses and of barbed wire. Blessed be the flower that triumphs at last, even over the hand that gathers it, cuts it off from life, from roots, from the memory and taste of iron and tears in the soil. Blessed be the flower that triumphs at last over the closed rooms that are not its home, over efforts to domesticate its wild truth, over the vain words of priests and poets. Blessed be the flower that triumphs at last over us, over pasts and futures, over words and silences, over deaths and lives, placing them all in their proper place, restoring to all things their joyful smallness. Blessed be the flower that triumphs at last. May we now enter into a moment of reflection and quiet meditation. Our offering words today are entitled A Place of Belonging and Caring by the author Kimberly Ann Tozak Carlson. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet priceless resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you begin seeking a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to the possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and to share your gifts. Let us today make an offering for this church. And how can you make an offering today? That can be done by way of sending in a check, going to our website, making a financial pledge and hit the donate button, or by texting, calling 833-484-0328. Wait for the prompt and follow the instructions. We thank you for your donations at this time.
This morning we're introducing something new. We are going to have something that we're calling the history moment. We are a 176-year-old church. We've been part of the history of Unitarian Universalism, the history of Peoria, and it's always good to know your history. The very first history moment is going to be a tribute to Bonnie Gaudet. As you know, she was just so well known for her love of plants and flowers. One of the things that she did was to plant flowers around the church and tend them for many years. And now her husband, Adam Gaudet, is trying to take over that responsibility to do the weeding and the watering that it takes to keep those plants and flowers alive. We are going to have a moment where you will hear the voice of Peggy Holmes Hicks, who was Bonnie's cousin, and you'll see Adam in the video. This is just very fitting for our flower communion.
It's Peggy Holmes with a tribute to Bonnie Gaudet and Bonnie's love of flowers.
I don't have to walk far in my yard, nor search high and low in my home to see evidence of Bonnie Gaudet's green thumb growing and thriving. As many of you know, Bonnie not only grew plants in profusion, she shared them broadly and generously. When the home she and Adam created was full to overflowing with greenery, they added a greenhouse. Soon that, too, was chock-a-block full of plants in every stage of growth, from seedlings and cuttings to full-grown, ambitious specimens. That enthusiasm for growing new life wasn't confined by the walls of their home. It extended to flower and vegetable gardens, teeming with color and variety, and always pushing the boundaries of the garden spaces until they overtook most of her front yard down by the riverside. And for all who mosey along the sidewalk behind the church, Bonnie's handiwork is on display. She planted and cared for prairie plants and perennials that parade color and texture throughout the season. Now Adam tenderly cares for that garden in loving tribute to his partner. Bonnie didn't acquire this intense interest in gardening. She was born into it. Her parents and grandparents and the greats for generations back could bring forth new life from the soil, year after year. I know this cast of farmers and gardeners because Bonnie is my first cousin. I know, too, that the women in our family, hearkening back to Miss Bradley, appreciated the value of growing a garden for food and for beauty, and for how the work of it feeds the soul. Like Bonnie, no doubt they understood that the allure of a well-tended garden can bring hope and assurance to the darkest days, and they may have recognized that turning over a patch of soil teeming with life-giving microorganisms connects you to a sisterhood that is both ancient and global. Bonnie no longer attends the UU Church. You won't see her festooned in that splash of color, tasteful and exuberant as a summer bouquet, and seated on Sunday mornings on the pew beside her beloved Adam. It was on March 24th, 2018, that an aggressive cancer claimed her life before she knew what was ailing her. but stroll out the back door of the church and turn to the east, and you will see an essential part of Bonnie living on in the garden.
As Unitarian Universalists, we sometimes have trouble with words like communion, but we are very much in favor of words like community. Basically, both words have the same root and mean sharing and mutual participation. And today, in this world, we are in the most monumental moment of sharing as yet ever known to the human family. We may not be sharing bread and wine, but we are sharing our hopes and fears, our dreams and dramas. We are in a process of relating to one another in a monumental way that brings us into one another's lives, no matter what our circumstances. We look out and we realize that not all of us are being cared for equitably, and only the most inattentive of people could avoid the inequities in our healthcare and other systems of support. So what does all that ugliness have to do with a beautiful ceremony like flower communion? So bear with me while we have a little history lesson. The man who created this tradition of the flower communion was Norbert Čapek, born in 1870 in South Bohemia, Czechoslovakia, which now is the Czech Republic. His religious journey took him from Catholicism to Evangelical Baptist ministry to Unitarianism in the United States. He became a Unitarian minister and decided to proclaim the good news of Unitarianism back in his homeland. He and his family returned to Europe in 1921, and the Reverend Čapek became the founder of the Unitarian Church in Czechoslovakia. He founded a Unitarian church in Prague, which between 1921 and 1941 grew to 3,200 congregants. Now, coming to Czechoslovakia and bringing Unitarianism did result in some problems. For instance, the members of his church were diverse. They were Catholic, Protestant, Jewish backgrounds, and Reverend Čapek wanted to bring them into community without causing alienation among his flock. So in June of 1923, instead of celebrating Eucharist, which is a Holy Communion, he celebrated nature with a flower celebration emphasizing the uniqueness of individuals and the beauty of joining together in community. During Čapek's ministry, Nazis invaded Czechoslovakia, and he was charged with reading inappropriate material and treason. Sadly, the Reverend Čapek was executed in 1941, a Unitarian martyr. But his wife, Maya, also a Unitarian minister, escaped and brought the tradition of flower communion to the U.S. So, whether we are in a time of warring with those who have different social and political views, or warring with a virus called COVID-19, we still need to have security in our world. We still need to belong to each other. We still need to come together like flowers in a vase and bring beauty to our world.
Normally on a flower communion, each of you would bring your favorite flower with you. And this would be the point in the service where we'd invite you to come forward and to fill the empty vases that you saw earlier in our service. But because we cannot do that, because of COVID-19, we ask you to send in photographs of your favorite flowers. And so at this time, we'll enjoy a brief slideshow of those photographs. Isn't the table beautiful? As you look at those flowers, think of them representing each of you as part of this community. Flowers have always been a symbol of springtime and hope, and the flowers you see in our service today are a symbol of community. The flower ceremony that Reverend Linda talked about by the Unitarian minister was a way to symbolize the light and color of the many creeds, many cultures, people joining together in a community. And what is the meaning of community? Mr. Scott Peck, an American psychiatrist and author of the book, The Road Less Traveled, shares the true meaning of community. He states, community is a group of individuals who have learned how to communicate honestly with each other, whose relationships go deeper than their mask of composure, and who have developed some significant commitment to rejoice together, to mourn together, and to delight in each other, to make other conditions our own. He goes on to compare a community to a precious gem when he states a group becomes a community in somewhat the same way that a stone becomes a gem, through a process of cutting and polishing. Once cut and polished, it is something beautiful. But to describe its beauty, the best we can do is to describe its facets. Community, like a gem, is multifaceted. Each facet, a mere aspect of the whole that defines the description. Each of you who are listening today or who will listen are part of the Unitarian Universalist community. For a moment, I invite all of you to think about our community. You are like these flowers, each with your own uniqueness and style. You can stand alone and are beautiful, but when we come together, you are still beautiful, and each of your uniqueness shows through. This is the beauty of community. I experienced the uniqueness of this community the first Sunday that my partner Jerry and I attended. I still remember looking out at the sea of faces and seeing your smiles and wonderment in your eyes. As our time together turned from days into weeks, I began to see you as a sea of daffodils. When you look at a daffodil, there are a lot of things you notice. But I bet you almost never notice the little withered brown bit at the base of the flower. It's really important. When the daffodils come up, the ground is still pretty hard, and there is something sometimes cold and snow. So at first the daffodils have a tough green skin protecting their blossoms. After it gets warmer, the daffodil doesn't need the protection, and it shrivels and it dies. And often in our lives, just as the daffodil, some part of us has to shrivel up and die so that some new part can grow and give beauty to the world. Oddly enough, though, the dead shriveled part of the daffodil doesn't fall away. There are two things we can learn from a daffodil to help ourselves and each other. We can be brave and wise enough when the right time comes to push out from under the tough skins of our souls that protect us from all that is hard and harsh, that can damage the more fragile parts of ourself. We can let some parts of ourself die so that new parts of ourselves can live in beauty. We can hold on to the shriveled up dead bits, especially if doing so helps us to remember, to honor, and value all parts of ourselves, all parts of our experience. And just because we don't need that part or that way of being in the world now doesn't mean that it has no value. It was very necessary to have that protection then, and very good to remember and to appreciate it now. As a congregation, you taught me how important it is to honor and value the parts of your history and experiences that you have shared together. But like daffodils, you as a congregation have pushed out of the tough skins that were a shield and a protection to you. You have nurtured and shown your true colors, and you are reaching out and learning how to be a community, how to connect and how to support each other without meeting together in a building. Each week I hear from members of this congregation who many of you have ministered to by way of phone call, email, or even a written note. These simple acts of kindness do not go unnoticed, and I thank you as your interim minister for the work that many of you are doing in caring for each other. This is the power and the strength of community in action. The other day I was online in a Zoom meeting with a group of interim ministers from other faiths, and we were sharing our stories about how doing ministry during a time of pandemic had changed. We talked about community and how we were discovering that our various communities were no longer being defined by a building. Our communities were being defined by the people in them. What is church? It is truly not just a building. A building is a nice thing, but it is not church. Today we celebrate our individual uniqueness and at the same time celebrate how beautiful we are when we stand together in support, encouragement, and love. Think of the power and the beauty that can happen in a community. When I think of power, strength, sheer physical force, I think of an avalanche. Tons of thundering snow come falling down the side of a steep mountain with the speed and irresistible force of a locomotive or a freight train. In an instant, an avalanche can sweep everything in its path. But there's something even more powerful than an avalanche, and that's a flower. I'm thinking of the avalanche lily. Each spring, as the snow begins to melt in the high mountains, these tiny flowers push their slender green stalks upward through the softening ice, through the winter crust, and into the warming sun. The avalanche lily has white flowers with a yellow center, and it's not very big, they're tiny. The flowers are just an inch or two in size, but the bud inside a growing green stem that pierces right through the cold overlay of February and March and brightens into the promise of April and a brand new season. You as a congregation have pierced through the fear of change and have brightened into a new dawn, a new promise. A new season is coming, and you are ready to face the challenges that await you. Within the heart of a flower is a fountain of beauty. Within the heart of this community is a fire that warms and dances, and with each of you is that spark, that spirit of life. Now I ask you to take a moment. Visualize your favorite flower. Notice its center, a focal point from which everything radiates. Now ask yourself, where does your center lie? Flowers stretch upward towards the sky, towards the life-giving sun. Ask yourself, what lofty aim does your soul inspire? Flowers have roots hugging the earth. Ask yourself, where do you draw your own strength and nourishment as you go forth this day? And may you grow in beauty, in light, in cheer, and in joy. Then go out and continue to share your gifts as freely as the pleasant flowers that you see their blossoms today. May it be so. Blessed be.
And now for our closing hymn. It's one we're familiar with. It's De Colores, and you will be able to sing along. In this particular version, the first verse is sung in Spanish, and the second verse is sung in English. And there's a bouncing arrow that will help you with the rhythm. So now let's raise our voices to sing of all the colors. During the first flower communion in 1923, Reverend Chapek presented the following words as a blessing of the flowers. All human beings are created in the name of joy and happiness, but thousands of troubles surround us, tormenting us with sadness. If a person cannot see beauty in the world around them, then troubles and sadness tie them down. The beauty of the clouds floating in the sky, the beauty of the spring rain, the beauty of flowers, the beauty of friendship and love. May people see that beauty, May true humanity spread out in human hearts. May we all get our daily bread. May people forgive each other their trespasses and not bring each other into temptation through hatred. May peace spread out across all the earth. May it be so.